There's a great quotation from Lenin, of all people, where he says, ethics are the aesthetics of the future. Ethics are the aesthetics of the future. It's a great, I don't know when he said it, but it must have been nearly 100 years ago now. But it's a great thought, isn't it, that ethics might be the aesthetics of the future. That the aesthetics we've got now, the sensory engagement that we have with the world that makes us feel certain things. And it's particularly associated with beauty, isn't it, aesthetics? But it doesn't, not necessarily, but particularly associated with beauty. And perhaps a sense of the beautiful that comes out of, at least partially comes out of, our evolutionary history and our time here on Earth, seeking the things that would give us satisfaction and increase our survival possibility and increase our chances of reproducing, and all those things that increase that survival. So the saying goes, so the idea goes. All those landscapes and those people and those circumstances, which are the signifiers of survival and the signifiers of sexual fitness. You're fit, but my God, don't you know it, he says. All those things which are signifiers of those are the things which have come down to us as the sensation of beauty, and the sensation of maybe even the sensation of the sublime, you know, the thing that is even higher than beauty, that we should perhaps aspire towards now, that we can feel, you know, in every chord of our being sometimes, you know. And you know, and I think there is a sense, I think, in which that aesthetics, that sense of engaging with the world, has evolved, and not just evolved in technical biological terms, but also kind of evolved in cultural and societal, human, interpersonal terms, isn't it? You know what I mean? We are at the stage where we can find ideas beautiful or ugly. You know, that's certainly the case, I'm sure. You know, people who work in the sciences, mathematicians as well, particularly, you know, quite often talk about their equations, their formulas, their theories, their hypotheses as being beautiful or elegant. And there's a complete sense that goes along with it, you know, a complete felt accompaniment to that. You know, like being in the presence of a sunset, or like being in the presence of a really gorgeous woman, or a gorgeous man, you know, or a fantastic landscape that just seems to be opening itself up for you to get inside of and stay there, really. Am I talking about women or landscapes? I don't know. Anyway, you know, the ideas do that, don't they? You know, beautiful ideas sometimes, and a lot of artwork does that. You know, it used to be the case that art, I don't want to be too elitist about this or suggest an elitist reading of this, but I think it used to be the case, and still is the case in a lot of the time, you know, that art is just on the surface. You know, it's what you see is what you get. You know, it does what it says on the tin, and a beautiful picture is a picture of a beautiful thing, you know. A beautiful picture is a picture of a beautiful thing. But that isn't the case anymore, hasn't been for a couple of 100 years. And you know, and the idea that's being provoked by the artwork can give you a sense of being in the presence of something beautiful, or interestingly disturbing. You know, it doesn't have to be beauty. Aesthetics can be the aesthetics, the sensation of being in the presence of something disturbing and ugly, but in an interesting way, you know. And I think a lot of the artwork's doing that. It does that weird, I don't know, I can't describe it really. But you know, as I say, a lot of artwork that doesn't look like much on the surface can do that to you, I think. Sometimes you have to know a bit about it, and that's not always fair, unfortunately. Particularly in a society in which art is commercialised so much and commodified so much, and is, you know, kind of siphoned off to be the stuff of the chattering classes rather than the stuff of everyone's possession, which it should be, in my opinion, and is really. I think people are. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You know, like a lot of contemporary art is bullshit for sure. 95% of everything is crap, but some of it isn't, and it isn't not because it's necessarily crafted better, or because it's a picture of a beautiful thing, but because it's doing something beautiful or doing something ugly to you. You know, the idea that it's developing along with you, you know, because it kind of exists with you, doesn't it? And you do something together with it, kind of. It exists between you, and the space between you and the thing you're looking at, the space of affection and the space of Yeah, so it's in there, really, isn't it? I think a lot of conceptual art, particularly, but all kinds of art. You know, conceptual artworks which are just ideas, really, do something beautiful to you, possibly. And of course, that's the fabric of literature and poetry, isn't it? It's in the ideas, it's not in the ink on the page, or the vibrations in the air, it's the ideas in your head. And the ideas that are merging out of the interaction with you and the object, or the piece of writing, or whatever it is. So yeah, so it's no longer out there, is it, aesthetics? It's no longer just the stuff of the cerebellum and the brainstem and the basal ganglia, although that's clearly involved. It also seems to me that there is a frontal cortex engagement here with aesthetics. You know, aesthetics is reaching forward and holding the frontal cortex, the bit where the ideas are processed and abstraction takes place, and metaphor and analogy and all those kind of things are formulated and developed. And if you can do that with ideas, you know, surely you can do it with ethics, you know. There's that very famous saying about beauty, truth, and truth is beauty, beauty, truth, you know, it's all you know and all you need to know. I don't think that's the case, but I think there's an aspiration in that, as well as the Lenin quote about ethics being the aesthetics of the future. You know, there's an aspiration towards, you know, what would it be like if we could develop this aesthetic sense, so we can have a sense of right and wrong, you know, not in a schoolboy dictatorial sense, but in a sense of, this is a beautiful way to run the planet, this is a beautiful way to treat other people, this is the right way for animals and humans to get along, this is a sensitivity to the space between all of us and stuff. God, I sound like such a fucking hippie, you know what I mean, don't you? You know, between me and the Himalayan balsam over there that comes from the foothills of the Himalayas, and me and Phoebe, ancestors who were the slightly braver wolves that domesticated themselves around of my ancestors. You know, all that stuff, you know. Finding, developing a sensitivity to those relationships. And just feeling your way through it, you know, in the same way that the landscape opens up to you, or that a beautiful woman opens up to you, or a beautiful man opens up to you, or a beautiful experience opens up to you. Beautiful ideas and beautiful ethics, beautiful and ugly and disgraceful and challenging. You know, we should feel the texture of it. We should feel the texture of that, you know. We should feel it like a social sculpture all around us that we're running our hands over. That would be, you know, that's when Lenin would mean something, I think. That ethics is an aesthetics. There's an aesthetics there. It's the aesthetics of the future.